So this is a video about the edge grab system for climbing and stuff, basically. People have been asking for a tutorial, which I don't really feel like doing. But I'm going to show you the basic blueprints and the systems at work in this video, hopefully. So basically my character does a lot of things, but this is the important bit. So I don't really remember everything I've done because I did it a long time ago and I haven't worked on it in ages. But the basics are that I do a lot of traces and I freeze gravity and stop things from happening and make things happen. So there's a vague approximation of the blueprints that I have. That this is the bit that detects the actual grabby bit. Like when you're jumping against a edge or something you might want to grab. There's a lot of things I didn't comment because I didn't think I'd ever want to read it later. There's a lot of traces. There's some that's the actual bit where the grabbing stuff happens. So it sets the extra location. There's a movement input for some reason. I don't remember really. Gravity scale set to 0 so you won't fall. Stops your movement so you don't drift off into space. There's some more traces. Basically a huge confusing mess. Here's a small bit of code or blueprints that determine whether or not the character can put the legs against a wall or not. So basically to choose between two animations. There's that. This is the bit that allows you to move sideways and around corners and things. So basically this one checks if the sides are free to move to with some traces. This one checks for edges to grab on the inside corners with more traces. I've got bits that I want to replace set actor rotation or location and rotation with a animation, whether it's root motion or not, or whether I deal with it in some other way. Basically the set actor rotation and location instantly changes the transform of the actor, and it causes a lot of things to not work very well because it is really fast and does not allow for time to does not allow for most systems to work that fast. So having a slower animation or whatever should help with that and remove some issues. This one checks if the edge is clear, apparently. Probably to see if there's an empty space above the where the character has to grab, so it determines whether it's an edge or not. This one checks for a slope based on the normal of the of a downward trace onto the surface, and that's useful for moving up and down slopes and setting the movements of the character to match that so it wouldn't get stuck, basically. Here's some actual movement bits, which move the character up or down with set actor location. For the slope, where it's up or down. Then there's most of it is split into halves. Like this is the same code, but it's for either left side or right side. So it's the same code, just some numbers are reversed. This one checks if it's a corner, so checks from the forward right or forward left of the character. I think to make sure that there's a wall you could actually grab onto or not. The upper part checks whether there's enough space for the character to actually fit there. There's a little dirty fix I did for some reason that I don't know why. This bit, yeah, okay, this bit teleports the player around the corner, which should be done with an animation to make it slower and therefore more reliable. And some sort of interpolation of the location or root motion if that's possible. Okay, so one part to make sure that you can move around curves better is to constantly attempt to move the character closer to the whatever edge you're grabbing, so you don't fall off, like an outward curve. So it constantly does that. I have no idea what this part does. Not really. Does a trace for something, and sets the rotation based on the normal of the trace, which means it's probably some additional part I needed at the time. So that's that. A system for when you're crouched to do a trace to see if there's a ledge you could cling onto if you walk off a ledge. This part does the traces and then sets the location of well, this part actually sets the character capsule size from the crouched to the non-crouched positions. This is the part I want to replace. That's to set actor location again and rotation, so it won't actually fall off most of the time. There's some additional bits. I don't think there's any other bits that are actually important for the... There's some simple IK stuff for the legs, I guess. I'm assuming it's the legs. Oh no, it's the hands. It's the hands, right. So there's two traces that trace the surface and set the IK locations for that. So yeah, I think that's it. So let's play this thing. I turned on all of the traces as a character. Rotates to your location, movement, direction. Turned on all the traces, so for one frame, so you see some sort of traces everywhere, and you can probably guess which ones they are if you looked at the blueprints with more depth. So basically you have these traces when you're falling to determine whether there's something in front of you or not. There, I didn't jump far enough, and I'm going to teleport back up. So these ones that are always visible are the IK traces for the hand height, which don't always work, I guess, but they're relatively okay. Here you can see a lot of traces. There's some surface ones. There's ones to the right that determine whether or not you can actually go there or not, whether it's a wall. Stops you moving into it. The big one in the middle is probably the one that detects whether you have anything in front of you when you're falling or moving. The little sphere traces on the surface of the edge are probably to get the surface angle for the slope and things like that. So well, this is going to be really hard to see because the traces don't actually work, but well, they do work, they just appear for a frame. If you're moving around the corner, it does a trace to the forward left of your character to see if there's space, and then sets your location there if there is one. So basically I made it so that if you press the crouch button it releases, and there's a really short delay for re-grabbing a ledge, so you'll be able to drop off ledges. And here's the whether you can put legs against something or not. There's nothing there, it's like a hanging animation, otherwise it's sort of grabbed on, and it's like a foot away from the surface for no reason, just a dodgy, non-optimized animation. As you fall, there's traces. Here's a curve. There's all the same traces, there's no special trace. It moves you against the thing with every frame. All the traces are based on event tick, which is good or bad depending on how you look at things. You can move outside the curve, you can move against these edges. The trace normal sets the actor location, so it matches the surface angle. Does inside works slightly just more smoothly because you don't move the actor as much. Here's this shows it how you can change the hand IK a bit while the actor itself doesn't really move. There's a thing like that. Alright, the line trace to the right of the character doesn't actually detect anything, so that it thinks there's no wall there, which there isn't. So that's why it doesn't turn here. Here's the same. Here you can actually see the green large sphere or capsule is the trace that shows whether or not the character would fit in there, and there's a bit of extra room just for safety, really. And the IK doesn't really work with that, but sure. Okay, inside corners, bit simpler with the turning. Just the trace going to the right detects whether or not there's a wall. If there is, turns the character. Right, then here's some slopes. Let's see, you can glitch out like that, I guess. You can move up and down a slope and the character follows the slope pretty well. If you grab onto something, it usually rotates the actor like straight, unless the falling trace normal hits something else in a weird way. So here you can see again, if your character does not have enough space underneath it, it will like crouch, and if there's enough space, it'll hang. Here we'll put his legs against there. It'll go off again. There. So this one pretty much shows that you can have you don't need that much space above your edge. The top of the red one going straight down in front of the character is the height you need. You could make it lower, but then it would be slightly glitchier in my doings anyway. So yeah, you can do that and that, and if you go there, then the trace above there is hitting something, meaning you can't move that way, which again stops you from moving into things and off ledges. Here's a little test that you can grab these not very deep edges. Again, the character is like a foot away from them, but that's not the important part. Grab onto tiny ones if you need. There's sometimes the IK sort of glitches out, but curves, well, not curves, slopes. Here's a curve. It's rather thin. You don't need a lot of depth or like height to it, or depth. To text the slope, you can go on the outside, but it does not do well with curves that are this steep on an outside curve that is also really thin. You'll just fall down. Yeah, here's some moving objects. So you can grab onto these. Yeah, there we go. Same thing works, just the character is now attached to the block as long as you're grabbed onto it, and you move with the block if you want to. And here's a thinner one. That's kind of tricky to actually grab onto while it's moving. The legs go up if it's too close. If it's really thin, it's also quite glitchy to move around corners because it does it per frame and not like it probably should, which is probably more frequently. And the set actor location again glitches out sometimes. Seems to be doing fine now. Right. Now here's some different levels of slopes. This is a flat one. It moves mostly along these just fine. Up and down. With the very steep slopes, which I probably wouldn't want to be able to climb in a game, these do sometimes not work that well. But then you can jump and grab and jump and grab. But yeah, it's just a wall. So these are pretty much the lowest things you could grab onto, which I don't know why you would want to grab onto something like that, but you can. It doesn't require any more stuff to be done to it. There's also a system that I don't have any animations for right now, which is if you're standing next to something and you want to jump. Right now it jumps, but the system is in place for actually using an animation to, well, a root motion animation to climb onto something, as you can see in the top left corner. That's pretty much it, I guess. I don't think there's anything else that I missed really, except maybe the if you're crouched you can go off edges and grab onto them. Works in pretty much any direction most of the time. Again, with an animation it should work all the time and not glitch out and make you fall to your death or something, which is probably bad in a game about grabbing onto things with a pit of spikes or something underneath. Anyway, that's the basic system, so thanks for watching, and hope this inspires you, or hope you learned something. Cheers.